spectrum frontiers. Riding hard, standing tall. From the heart of the people to the rise and the fall. Full spectrum frontiers. Where the stories ignite. Guarding tomorrow with grit in the fight.
All right, folks, here we are for another episode of Full Spectrum Frontiers. Today, we have Peter Murphy Lewis. And we're going to talk about storytelling as strategic asset in national security, amongst other things. But Peter, welcome to Full Spectrum Frontiers. Tell us who you are, what you do, and where people can find you.
Ben, I'm pleased to be here, honored. As you mentioned, my name is Peter Murphy Lewis. I do mainly three things. I do documentaries for interesting, complex, or misunderstood industries. I do fractional chief marketing office work, so consultant for 2 to 4 companies at any given time. And I do a lot of keynote speaking. The keynote speaking gives me the first 2 options, gives me a full pipeline. So busy. Interesting things about me is I live in a zoo in the middle of the United States in Wichita, Kansas, and spent 15 years in South America where I was a professor, and maybe some things you and I can talk about offline, but was recruited by a foreign intelligence service at one point.
Wow. So when you say live in a zoo, like literally live in a zoo?
Yeah, there's a boutique wildlife park right in the middle of Kansas called Tanganyika Wildlife Park. Used to be a country, now it's a lake. And this cool family named the Fouts started to collect endangered and exotic animals, 70s, 80s, 90s. And 2000s, they opened it up to the public. They were so successful as breeders. And now this really, really boutique zoo is an all-inclusive resort. It's the only place in the United States where you can swim with penguins, otters, feed a rhino, a hippo, giraffe, lemur, all in one day. And it's just really, really exceptional. I got hired here to help out with marketing, grow their revenue about 5 years ago. And they gave me a house inside the zoo as part of my compensation. And they have not taken away that compensation.
That's amazing. I bet your family loves it.
Oh, my 9-year-old, we are hammock campers. My wife might not listen to this, so I can say this out loud. I think I own 6 hammocks that I sleep in each one of them. And I take my 9-year-old, we can hear the lions roaring at night when we sleep in our hammocks.
Oh, that's the coolest thing.
You're going to come,
So
aren't
cool.
you? I feel like we're a
will.
flyover state between where you live and where you work.
Yeah. So it's, kind of in the middle. And I don't like to fly, so I like to drive. You never know, right? So,
yeah.
And I have 4 daughters who all love animals.
Any zoo age daughters?
And my youngest is 16, but still 17, sorry.
Yeah.
But they love animals, man. So you never know. You never know. So Peter, your career has taken you across, you've alluded to some of that, taking you across industries and frankly continents, right?
Mm-hmm.
What first pushed you to focus on telling the stories of essential but overlooked workers?
The short version is I was invited to have my own television show as a host in 2016 in South America, a show very similar to Mike Rowe's Dirty Jobs.
Okay.
And that show took off. It was very successful, had a number of seasons. I've done more than 120 different jobs. And I've shown people's passion through those trades, these jobs that you and I might not be aware of that keep our society together and underappreciated and or not even seen or neglected. And I really, really fell in love with that process. I realized, one, I connected with those people maybe out of guilt, maybe because I hadn't respected them the way that I should have my first 35 years of my life. And then that same process I brought back to the US about 5 years ago and started doing documentaries here. I can give you the longer version, but that's the essence of how I got into actually making money doing what I do.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when you make documentaries here, what are those? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the first one's fun. The very first one was about 2.5 years ago, and it was in for a nursing home association. And I was doing a keynote gig in Nebraska, and I pitched to the president of their nonprofit foundation, said, "Why don't we do something about the staffing crisis in your industry? And why don't we do something about the negative public perception of nursing homes? I have an amazing perception of nursing homes. The people who took care of my grandparents were exceptional. And I know that there's bad players, but I don't think it's the majority. And it's the bad players who get all the press, not the good ones." And I said, "So why don't we
Yeah.
change that? Why don't we do a version of Mike Rowe on CNAs?" And she said, "Tell me how much it costs and show me how you're going to do it." And that idea was going to be like a 20-minute YouTube documentary. But 2 days into filming, I called her and I said, "This is going to be a full season, and we're going to get this on streaming." And 6 months after we finished that, we submitted it and got accepted on Amazon, Hulu, Apple, and that nursing home has now turned into 6 seasons. I'll be filming 3 more seasons this spring, and since then I've done more documentaries in other spaces.
Awesome. So cool. Yeah, and I truly believe, like, especially with, well, we learned a lot with 2019 to 2021 about nursing homes, and some are bad players, some are good players, but I think mostly good, right? So
Yeah.
um so when did you realize that storytelling could change how entire industries, I guess you would say, see themselves?
I would say when I started to get feedback from some of those individuals in my very first season of my TV show. Uh, I interviewed with kind of a handy, let's call her a handy woman. She's a handyman who's a woman who she was a professor for kind of interns who wanted to become, just generalist handyman. And she was a teacher, and she had people signing up for her school, reaching out to her on Facebook, not only females, but males saying her, like, "You inspired me." I worked as an underwater welder for this really cool organization that helps troubled kids, often orphaned kids, find a skill that they might not find anywhere else. It's very much needed in their space. Obviously, doing it, for the Navy and for other commercial boats in South America. And I heard about how much impact that impacted their school. So I started to hear it from the audience, the people watching it, and then I heard it back from the people that I was interviewing on my show.
Wow. So cool. Um, so something that I read in material from you was that the U.S. it's got to do with shortfalls, right, for manufacturing workers. And I think that the number was the U.S. is projected to be short more than like 2 million or 2.1 million manufacturing workers by 2030. Is that
That
correct?
sounds right.
Okay. So in your view, what is really driving this gap?
Wow. Um, so in my olden days, I used to be a sociologist, but I have not kept up to date on that. I can I would assume from my perspective, I'm a 45-year-old who could easily have a 22-year-old son. I don't have a 9-year-old, but I could easily have a
Right.
child who just threw, $100,000 at college and comes out and doesn't want to get his driver's license, wants to ride Uber and doesn't want to go do a job that's not going to ever pay off his debt. I would guess that we have a perception crisis. We have an attention crisis. We have an entitled problem right now inside of our society. And a lot of these industries, not just manufacturing, but many, many, just like nursing homes, they have been painted in a particular way that is not considered to be elite or desirable or a place that you can build your career. You and I know
Absolutely.
that's not the
Yeah,
case.
that's totally not the case, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like if you, I'm blessed that that 22-year-old is not my son. I have a 9-year-old, but I'm going to be able to push my son into one of these trades, one of these skills, where they're not going to have the debt, and they're gonna feel fulfilled. They're going to be needed. They're going to be able to own their own company. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. I push folks, and my wife works at the high school, our local high school, and I really just try to push folks into trades because there's something that's never going to go away. They're always needed. My one daughter's um, now studying to be a nurse, so she saw the light. Another one is actually hair, like cosmetology, which
hmm
I would consider a trade as
I would
well.
too.
You know,
hmm
so and then I have another daughter who's a fishmonger. That's what I was. She works for a seafood company, but either way, so I've been successful with that as well, pushing that. But I mean, I think like how much of that workforce shortage is like a narrative problem versus a policy or training problem, like nowadays.
I think it's both. I can't speak to the policy perfectly. I can give some ideas because
Yeah,
the only podcasts I consume are mostly politics. I studied my master's and PhD in political science, so I'm interested in it. But from a narrative point of view, I think it's critical, right? Like
yeah,
you think, what are the types of jobs, what are the types of trades that we admire in our society, and which are the ones that we frown upon, and that just moves people further and further away, and
yeah,
that from a perception point of view, I think that's the starting point, right? Like when my son tells me what he wants to do, right, he's thinking of things like influencer and rapper and the things that he sees on TV. He doesn't know that 90% of the things that allow our heating and air and our plumbing and our house to stay together, the person who put our bed together, the person who fixes our refrigerator and fixes our car, that's 90% of our society. And I can't blame everything on the government. That perception problem is, I have to take responsibility for any perception that he takes on as well.
yeah. It's stigma issues and whatnot. I mean, the richest people in the county that I live in, um, he is a billionaire, and became a billionaire from scrap metal. Literally driving around. They started out driving around picking up scrap metal, and that's now he's a you know billion with a B air. Uh,
Yeah,
and you just never know. I mean, and I know multiple high six-figure earners that literally they own plumbing. They started out as plumbers or electricians.
yeah.
Just amazing.
I
And
did.
I'm
I
sure
did.
you've seen it too.
Yeah, I did a TV season here in the United States of Latinos who live here in the US and are searching the American dream, most of them entrepreneurs. And I interviewed this amazing gentleman. His name is Cesar. Cesar. I believe he lived in Long Island, and he's running like 1,500 lawns, a lawn business. He's been acquiring his competitors, and he started off, when he was 18 years old as a nobody, didn't speak English, and just really, really knew how to get it.
Yeah. Get after it for sure. That's that's half the problem is the execution, right?
Grit, right?
Yeah. So in your opinion, what stereotypes or outdated beliefs are hurting our ability to attract young people, young talent, uh, into like manufacturing and the trades?
I think it's the story, right? So we at least I see this from a marketing point of view. I see industries, nursing home, manufacturing, restaurant, hospitality, whatever it is, they start off with the short clips. right? We are day trading, as Gary Vee says, in the attention space world. Trump is great at attention, whether you like his politics or not. He's great at the attention. So people think that you need to start off with clips. You need to start off with something that's controversial. I don't think that's the case, because that clip will be gone in 2 days and you won't remember it. You won't be able to find it. You forward it to somebody and you don't know where it is. That's gone. But the story, if you build the clip off of a true story, a true narrative, that story will stick with the person. Ken Burns has taught me so much since I've been getting into documentaries, that you can't change people's opinion with more data. You can change people's opinion with stories. And if you add stories and emotion to it, and you add authentic stories, multiple stories together, you can change the public narrative. Right. Like I always, when I started doing this exercise about a year and a half ago, Bennett, I started to think, if I'm going to tell people that data doesn't change people's opinion, stories change people's opinion. What's changed my opinion? And I started to go through it. Right. I grew up in a small town, 2,000 people in Kansas. You can guess what my opinion was about gay rights when I was born in 1980 and when I went to high school in 1994. Well, you know what changed it? Not data. I
No.
went to college with a bunch of cool gay kids. You know what my opinion was about HIV and AIDS in the 90s? It was different than when I got my job as an HIV/AIDS caseworker with the homeless population in Boston. It's the stories and the experiences. So it's not, clips are not going to change my opinion around cannabis or nursing homes or HIV or gay rights or whatever it is. It's the story that you build the core content upon, and then you have the clips that pull the people down the funnel.
Yeah. Just basically show dignity, and that, dignity in all the work, right?
Yeah.
And visibly create a stronger workforce, period. You know. Can you share the moment while so you have, what is it? People worth caring about. What is that?
That's the series, the documentary series in the healthcare space.
Yeah. So can you share a moment from when you were filming people worth caring about, when you saw a worker transform
Yeah.
just by being seen?
I've got a couple. I'll start off with one that changed me. And it's the reason it changed me is because our stereotype of nursing homes uh, are 50-year-old women taking care of 90-year-old women who go there to die next year, right? Well, my third season of People Worth Caring About, I was filming in Las Cruces, New Mexico. It was my first day of filming that season. And I filmed in this rehab center with a gentleman named Michael, who's a nurse. I don't remember exactly how many years Michael was an active military member, but he was in, I think the word is he called military police, active duty 2 or 3 tours. Saw things that that would terrify me, and he defended our country. And he remembers waking up one day and saying that he had taken enough lives in his life, and now he wanted to save people's lives, and he wanted to be somebody not only that his country would be proud of, but somebody that his son would be proud of. And he soon retired, went back immediately, and became a nurse, and only wanted to work with America's seniors. And when he told me this, I'm about to tear up, and he told me this in the hallway. He tears up. I tears up. He's got this huge, big body and this quiet voice, and he talks to me like this on the documentary. The microphone guy had to turn everything up. And Michael changed my life. He changed my life because he does 2 things that I admire: protect our country, great dad, takes care of our grandparents, and he broke down my stereotype. And that documentary might not have changed his life, but it changed mine. And I can think of a couple other examples where the documentary not just changed my experience, but it changed theirs, if you'd like for me to share another.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is day 1 of filming the first season. So I walk into a hospice in Omaha, Nebraska. I'd never been into a hospice. Now, I'd worked with people dead and dying from my work in HIV and AIDS, but I'd never been in a hospice to visit them. I walk in, and the gentleman I meet, his name is Jace, and Jace has a beautiful lab named Pickles. Now, Jace was a quiet, kind of soft-spoken gentleman. I don't know if he wanted to be on camera. Probably 19, 20 years old. He was a CNA. And that day we worked with a woman named Kim who was inaudible. She had to type on her cell phone what she wanted to communicate, and she had to eat through a tube. And she wrote on her phone how thankful she was for him and how important he was for her. And she felt that she was the most grateful, the most blessed person that existed on this earth. And she wrote that in. And Jace had never seen himself on the big screen. When we premiered that documentary, they brought him to the big theater, the best, the VIP red carpet, and he walked in. And I found out afterwards from his boss that he decided that he was going to be a long-term care supporter forever, and he wasn't going to be just a CNA. He went and enrolled to become a nurse. And I don't mean just a CNA as something negative. Right. I'm a CNA. I went and became a CNA 5 years ago because I believe that I should do what I say I'm going to do and do the work. But he went even further. And I just think having him be an inspiration for that younger generation matters, both he and Michael.
Wow. So, kind of transitioning just a touch towards, because I do a lot of work in defense manufacturing. It's often hidden behind closed doors and NDAs, right? And it just has a bad rap. People always think of Lockheed and, the big bad, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I've really been thinking about one of the things that I've really been doing, because we do a lot of workforce development in the what I do is how do we humanize that work responsibly. So I guess one of the pieces that always pops up into my head all the time is a lot of these folks are veterans. A lot of them are, and frankly, with a lot of the work they do, they're unsung heroes, just like so many other manufacturing and trade jobs, right? So I guess a question for you is, how does a modern manufacturing hero look? What does that look like in your eyes?
Mm. I like where you're going with it. What comes to mind before I ask you, like, who is a person who can actually talk about their work? The thing that comes to mind right away is I try to find, when I'm working with an industry that is misunderstood, I try to find somebody who is overcommitted to that industry and somebody who is not an executive. I think that over dedication, that discipline is something that all Americans desire to have. We are motivated. One of our core principles is to be productive, to be efficient, to be responsible, to be honest. And when we find somebody who encompasses all of those traits and they dedicate their lives to a specific job and a profession more than us, we admire them. We sit down and we see all of their contradictions of us as human beings, and we forgive them because they have something that we want, which is principle and love and passion for a job. We find that person will change my opinion no matter what. I bet you and I could find 5 things that you and I disagree on. And if you could find me an overcommitted, passionate person to their job that's dedicated 20 or 30 or 40 years to it, I would at least be patient and caring and human enough to listen to their story. And I bet you it would start to move my opinion. So that being
Yeah.
said, is there anyone that could talk about their job, show what they do, that's overcommitted, that they're as committed to you and me as podcasting and looking at ourselves on camera and hearing our own voice, but they're the humble servants and they do it every day?
Oh yeah, for sure.
What does that look like?
It looks I mean, like I see the guys, like I know folks especially that literally they're the guys that have been working there 15, 20, 30 years, have kids, truly believe in the work that they're doing. It's the overcommitted. I love that that term. It's great for sure. I don't think those people are always that hard to find. You just have to look for them, right? And a lot of people, you know, yeah, I don't think that's a problem. So
When I'm talking to a CEO or an executive in the healthcare space, they always struggle thinking, who am I going to have be the face of this documentary? Who can tell the story for our patients, our residents, and our team? And they usually start to think about people with a lot of accomplishments. They think of somebody, finished school quickly or got straight A's or so forth. And I said, those people are probably more role models for their family and maybe even role models for inside of your team. Who is the person without a degree that you are humbled by, that you learn the most from every single day because of their discipline, because of their passion? And they
yeah,
immediately have someone. They think of kitchen staff, they think of a maintenance man, they think of a CNA, they think of some med aide who always works on holidays because she doesn't have kids and she wants the other med aides to be home. And that CEO says, I've got it. It's Sarah, it's Jace, it's Michael. That person is the person who's going to change our opinions, not the
yeah. I'm
executive.
pretty sure almost every employer could think of somebody
Mhm.
at their job. So like, um, if every factory in America, I've got a lot of folks that work in manufacturing that listen to this. So say every factory in America could record one story tomorrow, what should it be?
I'll go back to the example of the underwater welding because I think somebody would be able to resonate and think of something similar. So this underwater welding company, it was built by, I believe, two Chilean Navy officers who worked their way up. They didn't become officers because of their last name or who their mom or their dad was. They worked and they worked their butt off. And when they retired, they wanted to find a way to give back to the population they've come from and to the same institution that had paid them and given them a career in their life, which was the Navy. And the
Yeah,
best way they do it is they found a way to get scholarships for these troubled kids in the streets, and they showed what they do from a manufacturing point of view through the story of troubled kids. And what came out in that story is not just the people that I interviewed. We showed their job, and then we just showed the story of these two founders. So we pulled together the vision of the owners, their mission for the military and for a trade. And we told the story through some 19-year-old who might be lost selling drugs or gang banging on the streets if it weren't for them.
wow, that's amazing. Such a good story, um, for sure. So that kind of some of what we've been talking about. So technology, right?
Mhm.
Um, trust and future work. A lot of people with AI and then just technology in general are having issues trusting their employers because they're like, oh, they're just gonna bring something in, it's gonna replace me, right? That
Mhm.
automation and AI are changing the landscape of many people's, like, whether it's factories or auto manufacturers or even fast food. Um, does that make storytelling more important or less?
The crisis that we have right now in trust makes storytelling more critical. So I have a medium-sized marketing agency, 25 people at any given time working on my team. We're moving about 80% of our resources over to storytelling because w- that story is needed more than ever, and AI can't take that down.
Yeah.
AI can take down many of the marketing services that I provided a year ago, 3 years ago, SEO, ads, social media. Storytelling can't, right? nonfiction. I can't. I'm gonna miss the phrase, but what reality is always more impressive than the fiction.
Yeah.
And the what I think about the trust point of view, right, is that is exactly where you're going to connect with the person. And I said before, Bennett, the word around our contradictions. Um, and I don't know if it's Ken Burns who says this, but I feel like I pulled this from his interviews. Is you and I have contradictions around our ethics, our principles, the way that we raise our children. We try to be as coherent as we can, but we're not. We're human. And when people sit down with us for an hour, they forgive you and I for our sins, for our misgivings, for our failures, and they start to trust us. So I think in this era of mistrust, whether you want to call it fake news or you want to call it bad employers, bad operators, whatever it is, if you have trust, you have built a moat around yourself as a business. And if you can build that moat around yourself as an industry, you can take a percentage of that job shortage from another industry. I always tell when I'm doing work in the long-term care space, in the nursing home care space, I always say my number one mission is to prevent 18-year-olds to go into work at Walmart who are going to hate their life in 3 years, and let's come make them be a CNA and turn them into directors of nursing administrators. So I always like to pick an enemy, and pick an enemy, and you got to find your enemy. Who is it, the people that mistrust and is a bad operator, and show that you could be trusted.
Yeah. It's communicating that the future is people plus technology, not one replacing the other. Right. I mean, I
Well,
think that's a huge message.
I thought of another example, and it's rather simple. It's funny because I woke up this morning with insomnia, like at 1 a.m. And stupidly, I turned on my cell phone, which I shouldn't have brought into my room. And I looked on Facebook and I realized that my local police department in my hometown where I grew up had posted about every single day for the last 7 days something that I hadn't noticed. I had seen it, but I hadn't been able to express it. And you know, police officers and law enforcement are dealing with a trust crisis and a public opinion crisis. Not with me. Like I teach my son to respect um, law enforcement officers. We go up and we thank them and so forth. But and what I noticed, what they were doing from a social media point of view, you know what they did? They posted how many calls they had received the day before in the 24 hours from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m., what those calls were, what the average response time was, how many people showed up at each place, what were the incidents, and where people could find it. And in 7 days, I was like, whoa, that would change people's opinion, right? That's going against a little bit what I said with data, but what they're putting there from a story point of view is they're saying we have 15 men and women every single day who show up and make your house safe. We haven't told about you in the past, and that's why you have a bad perception. We're telling you today, and we're going to update you every single day.
Awesome. Great. Um, so, I mean, we're not done yet, but start meandering that way, right? So, um, for executives and policymakers, what one step can they take this month to make their workforce visible?
Hmm. I'll tell you the framework that I go about doing it, and I think that they could do this as well, and it would help them figure it out. The framework that I use is CARE. It's an acronym: CARE, confront; A, amplify; R, reshape; E, endure. So confront, what I do is I go determine what are the things that people are saying about me when I'm not in the room. I like to go to YouTube comments. I like to go to X or Twitter, and I like to go to Reddit comments. And I like to see what are the things that people that are going most viral, what are the trolls saying that people are reading and upvoting. And then I take that to the 10 smartest people in the room, those over dedicated people, and I say, what these people are saying is part of the truth. It might be 2%, 5%, 10% of the truth. What is the percent? What is the truth that is not being shared online in these viral forums? And they start to say these things out loud. They start to talk about Michael and Jace, and they talk about the residents who find another life in the nursing home that they go to. And I say, okay, now how do we find a person who can tell that story? So I like to start with the negativity. Then I like to start with whose voice am I going to amplify? How then am I going to reshape people's opinion? And how do I turn that into an evergreen asset that will endure? Now, I put all of my chips into documentaries in the last couple of years. From a policy point of view, they have access to new media, legacy media, right? I think you should start off by being more confrontational. You should talk about what people say about you when you're not in the room. That would get me to listen, right? Like you and I might have a negative opinion. I'll just make something up. You and I have a negative opinion about teachers' unions. Okay. Wow. If a person started off by, instead of telling me what their pitch is, they started off by saying something negative that you and I have based around a certain percentage of data, and they talk about the elephant in the room, I bet you and I might give them another minute or two before we turn off the TV.
Agreed. For sure. And then kind of transitioning for young people, who think like a lot of this type of work is boring, right? The dirty jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that these jobs are not for them. What would you tell them?
I think what I'm going to tell them is probably something that is not my job to do it, but probably their parents, probably not their teacher. I think we put too much responsibility on our teacher, and we have a bunch of parents who haven't taught our kids to have some grit. But life is not just about what you want to do and making you feel important. You know, I always teach my son, my job is to keep you safe and to empower you to live happily and be honest and enjoy your life when I'm not around. It's not to protect you from being emotionally hurt. And that means I'm going to have to tell you the brutal truth. So sometimes you have to do things over and over and over, and you realize you're going to fall in love with it. I didn't fall in love with running a marathon until I ran for 2 weeks straight. When I was training for that, I realized that I loved the journey. I didn't care if I was going to win. I did go out and win the marathon. Then I trained for an ultra marathon and I won the ultra marathon. What I learned from that experience is getting up every day and doing something that I hated could teach me to fall in love with it. Unfortunately, the younger generation needs to know you got to do that for 14 days in a row. And you need to learn how to write a sentence with correct grammar and correct punctuation before you can break the sentence and start writing poetry. We got to get back to basics. So work your butt off, and it's not about you. There's an app that I have, Bennett, on my phone that keeps me grounded. It's called We Croak, like we are dying. We Croak has an interruption in my life 5 times a day where it reads me a quote that I am nothing in life, that I could die tomorrow. And that keeps me grounded. It makes me realize that it's not just about me. Whether I believe in God or not believe in God, it's not all about me.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a problem nowadays too. The beautiful, unique snowflake. Itis, I guess you could say. I mean, we are, but you know what I mean. It's
How do you teach your kids?
I pretty much, I taught them how to really, that no matter what you say, it's about what you do, and it's about executing, not about it's not about, you always have a great plan, right? And Mike Tyson has the great quote, you have a plan until you get punched in the face, right? Everything's a great plan. And that you have to be adaptable, and you have to have some grit. And also, my biggest tool to them is teaching them young about mindfulness and being grounded now, not then, not then, or not, what's to come. So that being mindful is huge. I'm living in the present and not, I mean, we all want to dream. We all need to dream, but you can't live in a dream. It just doesn't work. So So for you, what's next with people worth caring about, and like how can like I'll say the industrial base and the national security base, how can people get involved, or is there a way? Even?
I think they can. I'll share how I'm doing it for inspiration. So I'm now moving outside of the healthcare space. I did 3 documentaries in the last 2 months. The first one was around a community banker. It's a really cool project
Oh wow,
about a CEO of a community bank who grew from one branch to 10 branches, almost $800 million in assets, and filmed a beautiful documentary that won't be released until he passes away. So we're doing a cool story about the unspoken lessons that he's going to leave for his grandson for that next generation. That's a piece that will have an impact. I would guess it's gonna win some awards. And so that's just kind of unique stories that you can think about. I recently did a documentary on a pygmy hippo that was born in the zoo where I live. And so I guess where I'm going with that is the exact same framework worked for those. So confront, banker. Banker only cares about money. Who's going to amplify it? Well, we find a banker who doesn't want to sing his praises while he's alive. No one's going to be able to know how great he is until he passes. We reshape it by confronting, the elephant in the room, that this banker only wants to make money and profits. How do we make it endure? We turn it into a documentary that will live on Netflix and Amazon.
yeah,
For the
that's
zoo,
awesome.
it's the exact same framework. What are the negative perceptions of wildlife parks? They're bad to animals. They keep them in small enclosures. There's a lot of inbreeding. All of these things going on, right? So that's what we confronted. We found this viral pygmy hippo to be the voice of the zoo and the wildlife parks and the keepers who give these endangered animals and exotic animals access to us, so you and I can learn about them and take our kids. And then we tell the story of the founders. So from a manufacturing point of view, I would start off with, what is the negative thing in the room? What is the elephant in the room that people are talking about you? And then I would start right there with the story that contradicts that, and show that to me and push it in my face.
Or the hippo in the room.
Yeah.
Um, so kind of to close here, I've got 2 questions. One word to describe America's industrial workers.
Bedrock.
Absolutely. And what gives you hope about the future of American industry, manufacturing, and, trades?
I just think that, the people that I meet every single day that are doing um, God's unappreciated work are principled, and they're going to be there whether I have a negative perception or not. My job as a marketer is to find their story and share it for others who might not hear about it. I think it's their principle and their drive that's going to make a difference. And I would actually say it's kind of somewhat parallel to what's happening right now with trust in U.S. democracy. Um, I am not a negative. I do not have a negative opinion about how we're going to come out from the crisis between the Republicans and the Democrats. I think that 5 years from now we're going to be stronger than we are today. And I think it's the resilience of what we are in America. And I would say the exact same thing for the manufacturing from an industry point of view. We have to find a way to get through this. We have to tell their story better.
Yeah, agreed. So, Peter, highlight where people can find you.
Yeah, the 2 easiest places are LinkedIn. Peter Murphy Lewis is the easiest place. And you can also search people worth caring about, and you'll find my website, and you'll also find our documentary on your smart TV today. So go look at that and think about what story you think you should tell. Feel free to reach out, and happy to do something together with you.
Absolutely. Amazing. I really appreciate you coming on. I when I got the inquiry, I was like, man, this is something that I really want to talk about. So I'm really glad that we got to do this.
I appreciate it.
And maybe it's just the first of many.
Yeah, come to the zoo. Bring some girls.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Carry the fire through shadows and storm. Voices of yesterday guiding us on. Echoes of duty, the call we still hear. Building tomorrow with courage, not fear. Stand your ground, keep the watch through the night. Guarding tomorrow where freedom's alive. Through every trial, the truth will endure. Full spectrum frontiers, steady and sure. From fields of the past to horizons unknown, the seeds that we plant are the future we own. Stories of valor, of lessons we've learned, a legacy carried, a torch ever burned. Stand